Hello and welcome back to Triple Crown Wargaming. Once again with me, the Duke, to give you my first impressions on another of the 9 supported core armies for the old world. And today I am taking a look at the Wood Elves. So this is actually an army I used to own, an 8th edition army I used to own. Probably 4 years ago now, maybe a little longer. And I actually swapped it with the Lawmaster for his Bretonnians. Which then obviously became my Bretonnians. We both had about 5,000 or 6,000 points actually of each army. So it worked out a pretty even swap. And now I am seriously considering going back to the Wood Elves. So they may be my first new for old world army, even though they're old. Very fitting considering it's called the old world. But anyway, before I ramble on any longer, the first unit in this case that actually I've seen some rules for elsewhere, and as ever with all of these videos, we don't yet have the books in front of us, unfortunately. So this is all based off of things we've seen in other videos, those blurry potato cam screenshots that I'm sure lots of you have seen, and all of that. So this is all going to be based on that. But the first unit that really stood out to me was one that I actually never had when I had the army, although the Lawmaster has added them to his, and that is War Dancers. So, for those of you who aren't aware, War Dancers essentially do a dance, and this was the same in 8th edition. They did a dance in each round of combat, which gave them a different effect for their dances. I think they had 3 in 8th edition, it might have been 4, and they've got 4 in the old world. Now, in 8th edition, you had to change dance every round of combat. Doesn't look like that's the case in the old world. You can pick a dance and stick to it and just keep doing it if you want. However, as much as in 8th edition there was only really one dance you ever wanted to do, which was the 3-up ward save, I actually think all of the dances look really good in the old world. Now, there is one that gives you a better ward save. You start with a 6-up because you've got talismanic tattoos, which they've always had. But one of the dances gives you now a 4+ ward save, so not quite as good as the 3-up. But like I said, you can do it every turn, and I think that's a big deal. One of the other ones just gives you a flat AP -2 on all of your attacks, and we'll get into why I think that's really good a little bit later. One of them is an extra attack, and the final one is a -1 to hit against them in combat. Now, weapon skill 6, I think that's really good. Will they need it? I mean, I'm not sure. Will they actually ever get attacked back? I'm not convinced because they are, as I said, weapon skill 6. They're also initiative 6, but, that doesn't matter because they've got strikes first. I don't know if they're the only unit with strikes first, but they're certainly one of the only units with it. Seems to be more of a character-oriented thing, but to have a whole unit being able to just strike at initiative 10, very, very good. Big fan of that. Onto their attacks, or sort of back to it. I mentioned it earlier. One of the dances gives them an extra attack, which is very good. They only start with 1, though you can pay a point for an additional hand weapon, or you can give them a throwing spear for free as well. So throwing spears are, you get to make supporting attacks on the turn that you charge. Pretty sure that's the way around it is. Anyway, yeah, so not bad. They have gone up 1 point in cost. They are 16 by the looks of it now, whereas they were 15. And obviously, if you do pay for that additional hand weapon, you're going up another point up to 17. Would give you 2 attacks, though, to start with, which is very nice. Extra attack dance gives you 3 attacks. And they've got Furious Charge. Now, we've seen this on the Bretonnian Pegasus Knights. I think that's the only thing we've seen it on, at least in a battle report that I've seen so far. But essentially, this gives you an extra attack on the charge. So 4 attacks on a turn that they charge. All right, they're only strength 3. They've got no AP unless you go for the dance, in which case you only have 3 attacks. But against, a lot of lightly armoured things, you're probably going to do enough to take that front rank out, which means they're not being hit back. So you're not too concerned about going for that additional ward save. And again, if they are a bit more heavily armoured, you can go, well, I'll just go with 3 attacks, my basic one, the additional hand weapon, plus the one for Furious Charge, and give them all -2 AP. I'm probably going to have, 5, 6 of them in alliance, 15, 18 attacks maybe, 19 if you've got a champion in there. Plus, you've got the Shadow Dancer character who can go in this unit. They're both loners, so that's the only unit that he can join, and the War Dancers can't be joined by another character. But if the Shadow Dancer does go into a War Dancer unit, he does gain the effects of the dances, which is very nice. He doesn't get it if he's on his own, which is a bit of a shame. You have to run him in a unit of War Dancers for him to get the dance. But yeah, I still think very good, to to be fair. Yeah, overall, really happy with what they've done with War Dancers, to be honest, because like I say, before in 8th edition, you were very much just, I'll take the 3-up ward save. If I'm still in combat the next round, then maybe I'll go for Killing Blow. I think one of their dances was Killing Blow. But really, you just wanted it for the 3-up ward save. But now, with no step up, and I think that's really what's made it so that you're not just going to go for that ward save dance. With no step up, and, you know, in general, no supporting attacks, that makes all of their other dances so much better for them, so much more appealing. So yeah, big fan of War Dancers. Definitely want to get my hands on some of those. Hopefully they'll be coming back, fingers crossed. The next unit, I think they might even still sell, to be honest. This is the Sisters of the Thorn. It's the kit that you can make either them or the Wild Riders. Pretty sure they still sell it. Could be wrong there. Let me know down below if I am wrong. It might be one of the ones that they took off stock a little while ago. Anyway, so these are a unit of wizards, effectively, or a unit that acts like a wizard. Very much how they did in 8th edition. They had 2 spells in 8th edition. They had Curse of Amrahir, which was the one I always used, and they had Shield of Thorns as well. Now, it's just 1 spell. However, looking at the wording, it looks like you just choose it. So, it's not a fixed spell, but you also don't generate it randomly. You just pick a spell. And you pick a spell from 2 of the laws, either Battle Magic or Elementalism. Suggests you can't swap it for one of the Wood Elf specific signature spells from the, I think it's the Law of Athel Loren, it's called, which is a bit of a shame. I've not looked too much at those spells, but yeah, it could have been nice if you could do that. But the fact you can just pick the spell from one of those laws, you don't have to worry about rolling for it. Big fan of that. Really big fan. Now, these guys haven't changed in points by the looks of it. Still the same as they were. Their command, like pretty much all command, has got cheaper though. And that, I think, is a big thing, because now, instead of having to have ranks to get additional bonuses to cast, you only need a champion for +1 or a champion and a banner for +2. So you can run this minimum unit of 5, add in a champion and a banner, and you've got +2 to cast it. Big fan of that. I like it a lot. You can't dispel with them because they're not actually a wizard, so you can't use them for a wizardly dispel, because what they've got are bound spells. So, yeah, a bit of a shame, but not the end of the world, to be honest. But yeah, really big fan of them. Need to look into Battle Magic and Elementalism a little bit more to have a think about what spell I might want on them. But the fact I can choose it, big fan. The next unit then, one which, I'm going to be honest, you just never saw in 8th edition. You really didn't. And that is the Wildwood Ranger. You did see the other model that you can make out of the same kit, the Eternal Guard, which actually is going to be my 4th thing, but I'll get onto them in a minute. But now, these Wildwood Rangers look a lot more appealing. So they strike at initiative order because they're Ranger Glaives, I think they're called. They're not strikes last, they're not great weapons. They give you the same benefits as great weapons, pretty much. +2 strength, -2 AP. No armor bane on them, which I think is a generic great weapon thing. No armor bane, little bit of a shame, but really not the end of the world. But yeah, it means they strike at initiative. And they are initiative 4, they do have Elven reflexes, so they're initiative 5. In the first turn of combat, plus obviously if they charge, getting up to that +3, maybe +4 if they're in the flank. Now, they've still got the same, I'm pretty sure it's called the same thing as well, the rule that gives them the extra attack against models that cause fear or terror. Now, previously this felt very underwhelming, because obviously we had supporting attacks back in 8th, but you could only ever make 1 supporting attack anyway, so it only really affected the front rank. Now, it still only affects the front rank, however, everyone can only attack with the front rank. So that added benefit of an extra attack on everyone, sort of in comparison, makes a big difference, I think, or will make a big difference anyway. What also makes a big difference is that there's another part to this rule. It also gives them multiple wounds too against anything that causes fear or terror. So anything monstrous that causes fear or terror, any monsters themselves, characters even that cause fear or terror, they're going to be a real threat against them. I'm a big fan of it, actually, that multiple wounds too. It's not, you know, so broken that you're going to see these guys all the time or anything like that. But it does give them just a little bit extra, a little bit of help against those things that they should be really good against. And I'm a big fan of when the rules do that. They incentivise you to use a unit to do what it should do, you know, according to the law. And I think this does that perfectly well. Big fan of it. big fan. I also think actually they've gone down a little bit in points. I could be wrong there though. And you can give them a shield now, which I don't think you could do before. Pretty sure they come with light armour now, and you can buy them a shield. And they didn't come with anything before. They were literally in their pyjamas. So a little bit of survivability there as well. And yeah, my fourth thing then, the Eternal Guard. So obviously the other thing you can make out of the same kit with the Wildwood Rangers. These were always solid, I think, in 8th edition, and I just think they've got better, if anything. They've got their Azray Spears, that's what they're called, which are essentially the same as they were. They were armour piercing, they're now AP -1, effectively does exactly the same thing, uses strength, and it allows them to fight in extra ranks, which spears do now. So there is a note to say that you only get that if you are charged or if it's a subsequent round of combat. So you don't get it if you charge. So that makes them, I want to say thrusting spears. I think that's the one it is, the way around. Anyway, yeah, but they are effectively -1 AP thrusting spears. And it gives you +1 initiative on a turn that they're charged as well. Nice little bonus. They probably don't need it, being initiative 4 base with Elven Reflexes, but a nice little bonus. They've also got Martial Prowess, which allows you to make support attacks in the flanks or rears as well, which means, you know, whichever, you can be surrounded and you can just be throwing out so many attacks that it would not surprise me if a unit of Eternal Guard, you know, got charged on 2, 3, even 4 flanks, or 4 facings rather, and won the combat. They're just going to be throwing out so many attacks. I really could see it. Big fan of them. They also have Stubborn. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, that's a bit of a shame because none of the characters have Stubborn. So it's not going to work effectively. However, I've since reread the Stubborn rules, and I think people who have seen it and people who have mentioned this, that, oh, you know, a character doesn't make a unit stubborn, vice versa. I think they've sort of extrapolated from the words that are actually there, which sometimes you need to do, but in this case, I'm not sure. So let me clear up what I'm saying. Essentially, under the Stubborn special rule in the main rulebook, it says units don't become stubborn if joined by a stubborn character. Stubborn character cannot use the rule while they're in a unit that isn't stubborn. It doesn't say anything about a stubborn unit being able to or not being able to use the rule when joined by a non-stubborn character. So actually, I think Eternal Guard will be able to use the Stubborn rule if they're joined by a character or two, even if those characters don't have Stubborn. I think it's that sort of caveat at the bottom of the Stubborn rule is specifically to stop what you sometimes had in 8th edition of, you know, character with Stubborn Crown joins a unit that isn't naturally stubborn, making the whole unit stubborn. I think it's just to stop that, as much as I don't think the Stubborn Crown exists anymore. I think it's just to stop that. So if your unit is stubborn, I think this goes for Hammerers too, because I think they're stubborn. Although the Dwarf Lord's stubborn, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you as long as your unit is stubborn, rather than just the character, it will make a non-stubborn character stubborn, effectively, while he's in the unit, which I think is a big deal, because when I looked at the Eternal Guard at first, I thought, oh, that's a real shame. You know, you're going to have them on their own to use that rule, which is okay, but they're only strength 3. They don't get any strength bonuses from their spears. They could probably do with a character with a bit of punch to, you know, help them out. Even if it's just a glade captain rather than a lord, they could do with something just to help them out, give them a bit of punch. And then I looked at the Stubborn and was like, yeah, they're not going to be able to do that and use Stubborn. That's a real shame. I looked through all the screenshots that I could find to see if there was anything that could give a character Stubborn, like a magic item or something, and I couldn't find anything. But there may be one in the main rulebook. To be fair, I didn't check there. But as it turns out, I don't actually think you need it. I think, as I say, because the Eternal Guard are stubborn, that will make any character that joins them stubborn. So yeah, big fan of that. Big fan, and big fan of the Eternal Guard in general. 5-up save if you buy them the shields. Got, you know, good spears with martial prowess, a great rule. Yeah, big fan of them. I think you can see them a lot in Wood Elf armies in the old world. And the final thing I wanted to talk about for the Wood Elves before I leave you today is not actually a unit, but it is Forest Spites. They're back! I'm so glad they're back. It was such a shame that they got rid of them in the 8th edition book. I don't really understand why they did. There was so much you could have done with them. But that doesn't matter now. They're back. Now, every character can take these, plus any Tree Spirit unit champion. So that's Dryad unit champs, Treekin unit champs plus the Tree Man, the rare Tree Man can take them as well. Plus, obviously, the Tree Man Ancient and all of your characters. They can take varying points levels across sort of those units and characters. But, crucially, I think you can only take one of each of the spites per army, sort of across your army. You can have more than one spite on a single model. So one model could take 2 or 3 if it fit in their points allowance. But you can only have one of each of the, I think, 7-ish spites across your army. So not everyone that's eligible to take them may be able to take one, which I think is a bit of a shame. It would have been nice if you could duplicate them, though I imagine that's just for balance reasons that they've done that. There are some really good combos in there, I think. So Befuddlement of Mischiefs and the Annoyance of Netlings. That gives you a nice little -1 weapon skill and initiative for a unit in base contact, and -1 to hit the model in a challenge with those spites. Nice little combo in there. So drop the weapon skill and have the -1 to hit you, and you're an elf. So, well, if it's on an elf, could be on a tree, but you're probably an elf with that combo. So, you know, you've got a very high weapon skill anyway, and you're dropping their initiative, so you're almost certainly going first with that elf too. And that combo's something like 40 points. So I think even your Glade Captain can take that many. Pretty sure it's 50 for the Glade Captain and 100 for the Glade Lord. Could be wrong, there might be 25 and 50. But either way, separate to magic item allowance, like they've done with everything else of that sort of type of thing across the armies that I've seen so far. Big fan of that. But yeah, really, the biggest shame is that you just can't duplicate the spites, because actually I think other than those two, for their points, I think the rest are all just a little bit underwhelming. They seem a lot of them seem just a bit too expensive. Some of them seem way too expensive, to be honest. I say that there is one, I think the cheapest one, that just gives you unit magical attacks. The model on the unit magical attacks, that's not bad. Considering Tree Spirits units, so Dryads, Tree Men and Treekin, don't have magical attacks baked in anymore. That's not what Forest Spirit or Tree Spirit does. So potentially, if, you know, we start to get into a place where lots of magical attacks are needed, not really seen anything so far that would mean magical attacks are super beneficial. Obviously, I'm assuming Ethereal, which actually, yeah, now I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure I've seen in the rulebook. Ethereal can only be hurt by magical attacks. So if we do start seeing lots of Ethereal things, then perhaps magical attacks is going to be more sort of necessary in armies. And actually, particularly given the fact that now Wood Elf Enchanted Arrows, so they've still got all of their options, well, not all of their options, some of their options for Enchanted Arrows. They're not all magical attacks now. There's only one, which I think is the Moonfire, gives you flaming and magical attacks specifically. The other 3 or 4, aren't magical. So that's a big change for the Wood Elves. No more magical True Flights or magical poisoned arrows. Yeah, it's just that Moonfire one that gives you magical attacks. So maybe that little, I think it's 10 points, something like that, 10, 15 points for that little Forest Spite. Maybe you'll see that one a fair amount as well, just to make sure you've got a unit with magical attacks. I could certainly see it, but I think that will be sort of meta dependent. You know, if you're coming up against what I'm sure vampires, assuming that vampire counts still have a lot of ethereal units and options to make things ethereal, that's really the only army you see it in, to be honest. So, you know, even Tomb Kings, as much as they are undead, I don't think they have anything that's ethereal. So really, you're just looking at the vampire counts and potentially demons. There's potentially some sort of interactions between magical attacks and demons saves, based on one of the special rules we've seen in the rulebook, which I can't remember the name of. Warp Spawned, I think. I think if the model's got that special rule, it doesn't get its regen against models with magical attacks. Or it might be ward saves, I can't remember. It's something like that. So there are certainly some interactions around magical attacks. I just don't think you'll need them all that much. But I could be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. But on that note, I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to thank you for joining me, as ever, here on Triple Crown Wargaming. If my 20 minutes of rambling didn't put you off, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel Check out all of our 8th edition videos on there, all the other old world discussion videos that we've got, and then if you like what you see, you can head over to triplecrownwargaming.com, where you can sign up as a Knight of the Realm today. Check out all of the exclusive 8th edition content and get ready to check out all of the exclusive old world content that we'll be bringing to the channel very soon. But for now, thanks for sticking around and we'll see you next time.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
Do it for Warhammer!